At 63, I bought a little weatherboard house in Bundaberg, that easygoing sugar town up the Queensland coast for 372,000 Australian dollars, about 240,000 US. And on move-in day, my new neighbor leaned over the fence and told me there was something down the back that the paperwork never showed. Before I get to that, do me one quick favor, leave a like and subscribe. It honestly makes my day. So, 8 in the morning, and the removalist truck came rattling up the street behind me, boxes shifting around in the back, the driver squinting at house numbers. I sat in the car a second and just looked at the place. A 3-bedroom weatherboard on Bargera Road, tin roof, a wide veranda out front, and a mango tree in the yard, heavy and green. And I'll be honest with you about the picture I drove up with that morning. It was a small one, a plain little house, all to myself. I figured, at my age, on a brand new street where I didn't know a soul, I'd be the stranger for a good long while. That's how it goes, right? You keep to yourself. You water the mango tree, you wave at the folks walking their dogs, and you leave it at that. A modest house, a quiet street, and a whole lot of nobody. That was the plan. That was the whole plan. Now, let me lay the money out for you plain, because that's what most of you came for. 372,000 Australian dollars. In real terms, about 240,000 US. For the whole house, the yard, the mango tree, all of it. And here's the one thing I keep next to that number so it lands proper back in Ohio, where I spent most of my life. That same money doesn't buy you a garage. It doesn't. Not a house with a garage, just the garage. If you've ever priced a house back home and quietly closed the laptop, sit with that number a second, because I did too. I sat with it for a long time. I ran it over and over, sure I'd made a mistake, somewhere in the math. I hadn't. And I know exactly what a lot of you are thinking right now, because I thought it myself for 2 solid years before I ever got on that plane. Fine, the price is real, but how on earth do you actually do this? How do you find a place and buy it and sign for it from clear across the world at 63 when you've never done anything like it in your life? Which town, which paperwork, who do you even trust? That part, the how nobody hands you, I'll walk you through my numbers today, gladly. But the full step-by-step, the whole checklist I wish somebody had put in my hands back then, that's a bigger thing than one story. That's the exact reason I put it all down in one place. It's called the One-Way Guide, my practical ebook, and it lives inside the One-Way Club with thousands of other folks who made this same move. It answers the questions I was too scared to ask out loud. Which town fits your budget? What a real home actually costs step by step? How the buying works from over there without you flying back and forth? So you stop scrambling for advice from the wrong places, the way I nearly did. The link's down in the description if you want it. I'll leave it right there for you. All right, back to the house. Because a low price on paper is one thing. What it costs to actually live there, month after month, that's the number that tells the truth. And the first proof of that was sitting on my kitchen bench before I'd even unpacked a plate. The council rates letter. That's your property tax, more or less. You know what it came to for the whole year? About $2,400 for the year. Do the math with me on that one. Less than 1 month of my old property tax for a whole year. 1 month. Back home, that letter used to make my stomach drop every time it landed in the box. Out here, it was $2,400 a year, and I read it twice to be sure I hadn't dropped a zero. I hadn't, and the power, even in the hot months with the fans and the air conditioner going, runs about $140 a quarter. Little numbers. Numbers you can breathe around. So there I was. Second afternoon, boxes half unpacked, sweat on my neck, feeling pretty good about the whole quiet and keep to myself life I'd signed up for. And that's about when the plan started to fall apart. Her name's Trish. She lives right next door. Big straw hat, the kind that flops down over the eyes, and this frangipani tree in her front yard just dropping flowers all over her drive, white and yellow ones scattered across the concrete like somebody spilled them there. She came out to her fence while I was wrestling a box of books, and she leaned over the top rail, easy as anything, like she'd known me for years. We got to talking. She'd been on Bargera Road 11 years. She asked where I'd come from and laughed kindly when I said Ohio. And then she tipped her head toward my backyard, toward the rear fence. And she said something I did not expect to hear on day 2 from a woman I'd known for about 4 minutes. She said, "You'll want to see what's down the back before you unpack." Down the back. I told her straight up that the paperwork didn't mention anything down the back. I'd read every page of it twice. 3-bedroom weatherboard, standard block, nothing unusual. Not one line about anything down the back. She just smiled, adjusted that big straw hat, and smiled, like she knew something I didn't. And I'll tell you, I didn't go look. Not yet. The truck still needed unloading, and I'm a man who finishes the job in front of him first. But that sentence sat in me the whole rest of that afternoon. What's down the back? What could possibly be down the back on a plain little block I'd already paid for, that a woman in a straw hat knew about, and a whole stack of legal paperwork never once mentioned? Down the back. That's all Trish would say. See what's down the back before you unpack. And every single page of that paperwork hadn't breathed a word about anything down the back. So I did what any sensible man does when a stranger hints at a secret on his own new street. I told myself I'd look later, and I got on with the boxes. But the house kept pulling my eye the other way, toward the yard, toward that back fence. So let me tell you what this place actually is, because this is the part you folks came for. It's nothing fancy, a wide veranda out front, the kind where you can sit with a coffee and just watch the morning happen, a tin roof that sings when the rain comes. And after every storm, that smell drifts right in through the screen eucalyptus, wet and sharp and clean. There's a mango tree in the corner of the yard that'll drop more fruit than one old man can eat. That right there is what $240,000 buys you up here in Bundaberg. Not a mansion, a modest weatherboard house with a tin roof and a mango tree. And standing on that veranda the first morning, boxes stacked behind me, I'll be honest with you, it felt like plenty. Now, the numbers. I like to know what a place really costs me month to month, and I've got a feeling you're the same. So here's the first one, straight off my own bill. The power out here in the hot months, running the fans and the air conditioning most of the day, it tops out around $140 a quarter. That's it. Picture your own last summer electric bill for a second. Now cut it down to this and keep listening. $140 for 3 whole months in a Queensland summer. Back in Ohio, that wouldn't have covered 1 month of just keeping the house from cooking. It's less than my old cable bill used to run me, and I wasn't even watching the thing. Now, I'm not going to sit here and tell you it's all perfect. That'd be a lie, and you'd smell it a mile off. Because a cheap little house up the coast, you're already asking yourself, what's the catch? What are the hidden downsides? Fair question. Let me give it to you straight. That tin roof I love so much, when a real storm rolls in off the coast, it is loud. First night, half asleep, I honestly thought the sky was falling in on me. The summer flies are real too. Come December, they'll find your face, and they are not shy about it. And the nearest big shopping center is a proper drive you don't just duck out for one forgotten thing the way you did back home. That's the honest side of small town living up here, and I'd rather you heard it from me on the porch than found out the hard way. But here's the thing, none of it dents the deal. Not even close. You get used to the roof, now that same racket puts me straight to sleep, like a lullaby somebody cranked up too loud. The flies you wave off and forget. And the drive? I've got everything I actually need about 10 minutes down the road, and the quiet I get in return is worth every extra mile of it. Real friction? Sure, just nothing that touches the price. And then there was the street itself. See, I drove up here braced to be the stranger. New man, new road, 63 years old. I figured I'd keep to myself for a good long while, and nobody much would notice the fella who just moved in. That is not what happened. By the afternoon, a fellow 2 doors down had lifted a hand at me from his mailbox, easy as anything. Somebody left a plate of something warm on the veranda while I was inside with the boxes, still don't know who to this day. And Trish's husband, out in his driveway with the hood of the ute up, gave me this slow, unhurried nod, like I'd been living on his street for 10 years already. I came up here expecting nobody, and I already wasn't the stranger. But that sentence of Trish's would not leave me be. See what's down the back. It sat in me all afternoon, right under everything else. And by 4 o'clock, the light was going gold across the yard. The cockatoos were screeching overhead the way they do out here every evening, and I found myself standing dead still in a half-unpacked kitchen with a box knife in my hand, not cutting a thing. Be honest with me. You'd have gone to look hours ago, wouldn't you? Of course you would. I finally did. I walked out the back, past where the mango tree throws its long shade, down toward that rear fence with Trish's straw hat and her frangipani tree just visible over on her side. And there it was. A little gate I'd never noticed on the inspection. Low, weathered timber, gone soft and gray with the years, half swallowed up in the long grass along the fence line, latched shut. I'd walked this whole yard twice before I ever signed my name, and I swear to you, I never once saw it. It wasn't on a single plan I'd put that name to. No page, no listing, no line anywhere on the title I'd paid for. And that right there is the thing I never saw coming. I stood in front of it a second, feeling a little foolish, a grown man's heart going quick over a rusty garden gate. The cockatoos were going absolutely mad, up in the gums overhead, that late afternoon racket they make before they settle. And it hit me that Trisha's whole hint, every last word of it, everything, she wouldn't just say straight over the fence, it all came down to whatever was waiting on the other side of this one gate. The gate, the paperwork, forgot. The gate nobody had thought to mention when they took my money. So I reached down and put my hand on the latch, cold, worn metal, smooth from years of other hands. And I stood there one more breath, because you know as well as I do, some doors, once you open them, you can't unknow what's behind them. That little gate, the one on no plan, no page, no listing, my hand on the latch, and the cockatoos screeching themselves hoarse above me. Trisha's whole tease came down to whatever was on the far side of it. So I lifted the latch, and I pushed it open, and there it was, the thing the paperwork never showed. The thing Trish couldn't just tell me over the fence. Because you'd have called her a liar until you saw it with your own two eyes. Not a scrappy little corner, not a strip of weeds behind the fence line, a wide, open, grassy easement running the whole length of the street behind every house on it. 6 houses, backing onto one long green space that nobody owns and everybody uses. To my left, a stand of macadamia trees, tall and old, the ground underneath them littered with shells the cockatoos had cracked open. And straight ahead, a short sandy path, worn smooth by years of bare feet, leading down toward a sound I'd been hearing since I lifted the latch but hadn't let myself believe. Water. Moving water. I walked down that path, the cockatoos still screeching overhead, and the trees opened up, and I stopped dead. A river. The Burnett River. Wide and brown and slow, sliding past the back of my own street, like it had been doing it for 1,000 years, and would keep on doing it for 1,000 more. And out over the water, on a set of timber posts that didn't quite line up, sat a rough jetty. A little wooden pier, built by hand, built by the neighbors themselves, plank by plank, over God knows how many weekends. Nobody hired a contractor for that, you could see it. It was crooked in the friendly way that things are crooked when people build them for love and not for money. A river at my back gate. That is the one thing I never saw coming. Not the mango tree, not the tin roof, not the smell of the eucalyptus after the rain, a river. The listing didn't mention it. The valuation didn't count it. The title deed, that thick stack of paper I signed a month before, said not one single word about it. If your idea of Australia just quietly changed in the last 10 seconds, good. That was the whole point. Because here's the part that still gets me. 4 years on. That river, that jetty, that green easement with the macadamia trees, it's on no title, no valuation, no listing, nowhere. There is no piece of paper anywhere that says it's worth a dime. Now, you tell me. You go find a house with private riverfront, a jetty, and your own quiet stretch of water anywhere back in the States. On the water. You know what that costs. You'd need a small fortune, and a lawyer, and a gate with a code on it. Here, 6 households just share it, quietly, the way you'd share a driveway, and it came attached to a plain little weatherboard house that cost me less than a garage back in Ohio. That's the thing about the price and the title. The paper tells you what the house is worth. The paper is honest, as far as it goes. But the paper doesn't know about the path. The paper never walked down to the water at 4 in the afternoon with the cockatoos going mad. The best part of the place, the whole reason I tell you to come and look, is the exact part no page will ever show you. So I'm standing there on this crooked little jetty, just soaking it in, and I hear a voice behind me. It's Trisha's husband. Big fella, quiet, the kind of man who says 3 words when 2 will do. And he's got something in his hand. He walks down the path, doesn't say much, and he holds it out to me. A crab pot. One of those round wire baskets you bait and drop in the water. Here, he says. You'll want this. And then he steps out to the end of the jetty, points down into the brown water off the far post, and tells me exactly where to drop it. Right there. Where the current curls around the timber. That's the spot, he says. That's where they sit. My first evening, I hadn't even unpacked the kettle. A man I'd known for about an hour is handing me a crab pot and showing me where the good spot is. And now 4 years later, I catch my own mud crabs. Big ones. Fat, blue-clawed mud crabs, the kind that cost you a small fortune at a restaurant back home, if you can even get them fresh. I catch them a 2-minute walk from my own kitchen. I drop the pot off the end of that jetty in the evening. I have my coffee on the veranda the next morning while the tin roof dries out from the overnight rain. And I stroll down and pull up dinner. That's my life now. That is the everyday, ordinary reality that this quiet little street handed a man who drove up the driveway at 8 in the morning, fully expecting to be the stranger on the block for a good long while. Trish, in her big straw hat, still drops frangipani flowers all over my drive from that tree of hers. And she was right, wasn't she? I should have seen what was down the back before I unpacked a single box. So let me put the whole thing on the table for you, the whole sum, because that's what you came for, and you've earned the full arithmetic. 240,000 US. That's what the house cost me, in real dollars, converted straight across. A 3-bedroom weatherboard with a wide veranda and a tin roof that sings. The council rates about $2,400 a year. You saw that already. Less than a single month of what I used to hand the property tax man in Ohio. The power, even in the hot months with the fans going and the air running, topping out around 140 a quarter. Those are the numbers. You've seen them now with your own eyes. And then, at the back gate, on no invoice at all, a river, a jetty, and 6 neighbors. One of whom fed me the very first night I was here. That's the quiet spot. The one most people drive straight past on their way to somewhere flashier. The one the price never showed, because the price couldn't. And that plain little house that looked so modest on the listing that river out the back turned it into the best deal I ever made in my life. Not the smartest stock I ever picked, not the house I sold up north. This one, a weatherboard in a sugar town most Americans have never heard of. So here's what I'll leave you with. Add it up at your own kitchen table tonight, the price, the rates, the power, and tell me it isn't closer than you thought. 240,000 US, a river at the back gate, a crab pot in your hand your first evening, and neighbors who feed you before you've found the kettle. That's not a dream. I'm not selling you a dream. That is a plain, ordinary Tuesday in Bundaberg. The cockatoos in the morning, the rain on the tin roof, the mud crabs off the jetty. It's real, it's paid for, and it is far, far closer than you think.